when we look at Apollo 13, we're thinking something different, right? We're realizing, okay, this is a totally different story. They're actually trying to um, faithfully represent what actually happened here, right? And this is just using a movie example. So we do this today. It's not just with movies. We do it with TV. We do it um, with books. We do it even on social media. We do it. We know different channels or different genres and stuff like that, right? So we recognize different genres help us to better understand whether these things um, are true or false. I'm just thinking the Babylon Bee, though, it's been confused for real news at times, which is a different story for a different day. Um, but in any event, the point is the nature of a genre tells us how are we to interpret what is said or what is communicated. So when Star Trek tells us something, we're like, okay, fictional story, wrap my mind around it that way. Apollo 13 says something, we're like, okay, yeah, that's an event that something close to that happened. I know Tom Hanks didn't go to space, but there was a person who he's playing who did go to space. So we understand those things. Now, what's interesting about Burridge is he sought out to argue that the Gospels were not biographies. That was the whole point of his dissertation. He wanted to argue against that. And then he writes, I have become increasingly convinced that it is indeed the right one, the theory that the Gospels are biographies, and that the Gospels are part of the genre of ancient bios or biography. And that's the literature that they belong to. So what's really interesting is he thought at the time there's a bunch of Americans arguing for the Gospels as biographies, and he's like, their arguments are bad. They're so bad. I don't know what the Gospels are, but I know they're not that. And then he goes and does his whole dissertation on the subject and gets convinced otherwise. So it's a really good book, but it's a really good book in that regard because the evidence is what persuaded him to change his view. But then his book has become a classic on the work. It is published in the 80s or 90s, and since then, it's virtually unanimously accepted that the Gospels belong to biographies. And there's some important takeaways from this for us. One is because this is a life or a biography of a historical person written within the lifetime of his contemporaries, they couldn't just start making things up. Like there would be limits on that. That would be beyond the bounds of this genre. Authors writing in this genre were expected to not just make things up like on the fly or anything like that. It would have been doing a different genre if they were doing those sorts of things.